probably hope it's longer, because whenever I make these long ones, people are like, Simon, just keep it going. Never stop. Never stop. And that's not how YouTube works. As the longer a video gets, the less likely people are to click on it for some reason. But except for on this channel, where these ones do really well. So I guess I should just make more of them. But then I'd make less videos overall. I don't know. It's very confusing. This is all incredible ways statistics have been lied to you. What happens here? Danny writes me a script. I'm going to read it. Danny has specifically said to me, Simon, there are images. So I've got my laptop out here. It's not a hassle at all, Danny. Don't worry. It's not going to make it longer than it already needs to be, is it, Danny? Is it? Let's go. Sam edits it, by the way. Thank you, Sam. I know this is going to be a beast.
I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
Woo! I could just pretend to be a little more enthusiastic, couldn't I? It's going to be great. Let's go. I was recently invited to invest in Crafty Collins' crooked... I was recently invited to invest in Crafty Collins' crooked Canadian cryptocurrency on the strength that it had just been officially recognized as the world's fastest growing cryptocurrency. Oh my god, the Canadians, no! Why can't we just let the crypto scams be the exclusive preserve of the Americans? The nice Canadians are now getting involved.
Attention Canada, get real money.
The statistics seem to back this up too, as the number of investors had mushroomed by 200% in the last week alone. And you know, it's like, yeah, it's got up 200%. Scam. It's a scam. But that's only because a grand total of 2 new investors had signed up with Crafty Colin last week, which marked a 200% increase on the previous tally of 0. Oh, I see, because this is a script about statistics lying to us. You got lied to by Crafty Colin. Anyone who's called Crafty Colin, don't invest with him. He's called f***ing Crafty. Crafty is just a polite way of saying sketchy. Bearing in mind, I played it very cautiously and only invested a couple of grand's worth of Simon's. No, Danny, not my money, no! Danny was like, Simon, I need a little bit of a budget for this video. And I was like, of course, Danny, take as much as you need. And it turns out he's invested in cryptocurrency. Brilliant.
Sure. A great opportunity squandered? Absolutely. Will I get over it? No.
Of course, statistics very rarely lie. Well, no, that's not quite true. There's that famous quote, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. And I remember, I don't know why this memory sticks out, but I remember being like, I don't know, 13, 14 years old in history class, and the history teacher, for some reason, this quote came up, like, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. And he was like, anybody who knows can tell me who this quote's from, I'll give a merit to. It was this weird thing. You had this book called a PCR. No, that's a COVID test. PRB, Personal Record Book, which was this book you had to carry around school. And inside they'd write down if you got a merit, if you got a debit, or if you got a distinction. And distinctions had stickers. This was like up to the age of 16, I shit you not. And it really mattered. Like, this mattered. I mean, to me, because I was a nerd. Other people were like...
We don't give a f***.
And you'd get merits and debits. And he was like, you get a merit written in your book if you could tell me who this is by. So I went home, asked my dad. He was like, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know. Whipped out that like Roget's book of quotes or whatever. Found that bitch, came in the next class and was like, yo, where's my merit at? And he's like, here's your merit. And I was like, yes! Yeah! Now my life is complete. Why do we give a shit about all this stupid stuff when we're kids? I remember how much I would sweat if I got a debit because I'd have to show my parents that to sign the book at the end of the week. I'd be like, oh God, no. And then a guy in my class, he had 2. He just went to like the school bookstore and stole a second one. And he had his good PRB and his bad PRB. And in his good one, he got all his merits put in. And then in the bad one, he got all the debits put in. And he only showed the good one to his parents and they'd sign it every week. And I was like, this is a genius scam. Why are you so shit at school when you're such a genius? I wonder what that guy's up to now. I don't even remember his name. I think it was James.
Absolute madness.
Anyway, he's probably like he's probably in business because this is the sort of thing that I feel like a businessman would do. He's probably running Theranos. Of course, statistics very rarely lie. Well, I read that already. Back in 2009, Reebok ran into trouble when they launched a massive marketing campaign for their new Easy Tone footwear, which claimed that walking in these sneakers could increase the strength and tone of your calf muscles by 11% and tone up your buttock muscles by exactly 28%. Immediately, I remember these. Were these marketed by the Kardashian family? I feel like that's true, or maybe I just really associate them with bottoms. But these are way too specific to be true. And 30% butt toning from wearing a pair of shoes? Really, Reebok? One of the ads explains the best part is that Easy Tone works while you walk the dog. Why can't I speak?
You can't even speak.
Yes, I can!
Works while you walk the dog, walk down the aisle, country line dance, chase after a bus, do the walk of shame. Actually, when doesn't the Easy Tone work? I don't know, when you're sitting down, when you're not wearing the Easy Tone. Does it even work? Well, here's something else to ponder while you're chasing a dog down the aisle of shame. Nice. Easy Tone doesn't work in any of these situations, as the stats were just completely made up.
Lies. Oh, lies!
It turns out that choosing the balance ball-inspired technology of Easy Tone didn't magically perk up your posterior, and Reebok agreed to pay the... Oh my god, I see how big the number is already. It just appeared on the bottom of my screen. Agreed to pay the FTC a settlement of $25 million for deceptive advertising. I vaguely... This was a while ago. But, yeah, that's a big-ass fine. Get it? Big ass. Kardashians. Easy Tone.
Get some help.
Obviously, the company decided that it was still acceptable to use the made-up statistics in Australian marketing campaigns for several more years until they were fined again in order to refund legions of unhappy Australian customers who still had saggy bottoms. Yeah, I feel like they're like, uh-oh, America's fighting us. And it's like, how about Down Under? And they're like, nah, mate, Down Under's no worries. We don't have an FTC. We've got a much more laid-back Foster's drinking version of the FTC, and we don't really look into things, mate. They probably do. They probably do. You probably should have done something about this, Reebok. Come on. Come on now. What do we call the FTC in the UK? Competitions Commission. There you go. You're welcome. Or is that something else? Maybe that's the thing that breaks up monopolies. Business Bureau? Better Business? Better? Isn't that the American one that regulates businesses? Oh, it's so confusing. And the good news is I don't care, so let's move on.
What the fuck are you talking about?
It's reported that the total cost of Reebok for their lies, damn lies, and statistics, look at that, was in the region of $80 million. That's what got me a merit. And it was, I think it was Groucho Marx who said it. Either him or Winston Churchill. I know they're very different, but, you know, they have a lot of quotes, and I have a feeling it was either one of those two. Let's move on. But statistics don't usually lie. It's more of a case of unscrupulous souls only presenting us with a tiny bit of the whole picture to amplify their own narrative and create a technically truthful but woefully misleading snapshot of data. Dr. Daniel Finelli of the University of Edinburgh concluded in 2009 that 33.7% of scientists are guilty of manipulating data or engaging in statistical abuse. Yeah, but can you trust that? You sound like a scientist, Danielle, don't you? You liar. What if your 33.7% statistic falls into that 33.7%, Danielle? What are we going to do then? But I'm not entirely sure I trust her figures. Oh, Danny and me, we both made the same really obvious joke. May contain graphic violence. Let's kick off with graphs. That's why I've got my laptop, isn't it, Danny? It's always easier to hammer your point home with a quick visual graph rather than having to resort to explaining everything in tedious sentences. And here's a graph that was brought up in Congressional Committee in 2015 by Republican... Come on, laptop. Let's go. I was like, this is a MacBook Pro, and I was like, why is this so slow? It's really slow lately. And I was like, and how old is this thing? Because I'm like, it's not that old. And then I realized I bought it 6 years ago. And I'm like, no wonder it's slow. It's basically a grandpa in the world of computers. Fascinating tangent, Simon. Let's carry on. Okay, so I'm looking at a graph. Well, I'm sure Danny will explain it. You'll see it on the screen right now. The Planned Parenthood thing that seems to be showing cancer screening going dramatically down and abortions going dramatically up. All those numbers. Oh, I know what the problem is. Do you see the problem already? Part of this graph is missing. The part on the f***ing left called one of the axes, which, you know, are important in graphs. So... let's just carry on. Danny will explain this to us. We don't need to use our big brains ourselves when we have Danny to explain the shit. Let's go. Republican Jason Chaffetz, who was making the case that Planned Parenthood non-profit organization had clearly changed its focus from providing breast cancer screenings to providing abortions, showed this graph. The big red line shooting upwards here represents the massive increase in abortions over a period of 7 years. Yeah, 289,327. Okay. Whilst the pink line represents the alarming tumble in breast cancer screenings over the same period. You could have gotten away with this a bit more easily, JSO, if you'd have put two y-axes, like one on the left and one on the right at different scales, and then it would look slightly less like obvious bullshit. I mean, it would still be complete bullshit, but it would, it's clearly missing a fucking axis, JSO. It looks pretty dramatic on first glance until you take a closer look and realize that the graph is utterly useless. Although the lower x-axis is labeled to represent years, the horizontal y-axis is not defined in any way at all. It's just not there, Danny. It doesn't exist. And this means you can do whatever the hell you like with those pointy arrows. It's true to say that the number of abortion procedures had risen slightly over the period, and that the number of breast cancer screenings had dropped. I didn't even know that Planned Parenthood was responsible for breast cancer screenings. That seems weird. It's like, well, you're just popping in for a quick abortion and to make sure you don't have breast cancer. Are those two things that are... I mean, I guess it's all like women's healthcare, but I feel like for cancer breast screening, wouldn't you just go to the regular doctor? I don't know. Is that just me? I don't know. The reason for the latter is most likely because the U.S. Preventative Task Force changed its recommendation for the frequency of mammogram screenings from once every year to once every 2 years. Well, that makes it... Stop lying! Sam, roll that, the one where he's like, stop fucking lying. Do it!
Oh my God. Stop fucking lying.
And it's like, I like to think... I'm probably not exact. I'm all over the place politically, but I like to think I'm pretty central. But why do I just get the feeling that there's going to be more like American Republicans in here? I don't know if that's just because I read more like, I don't know, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube. It tends to lean slightly left, I would feel, at least the Twitter that I see, because most people I follow, I guess, are more left than right, I would guess. I don't know. I'm not particularly. But I get the feel it always seems to be like Fox News and some Republican doing this. I guess, I don't know, it probably is all across the spectrum, isn't it? But I just get the vibe that we're going to see more of that today. First entry, a Republican congressman. Come on, man. Come on, you can do better than this. Also, we shouldn't be looking to politicians for stats. We should be looking to the 67% of scientists who don't lie. The fact-checking advocacy website PolitiFact produced a version of the graph with a clearly defined y-axis, and the result looks a lot less sensational. Yeah, it just looks like, okay, so cancer screenings have gone down, which has been... Sam, you've got the other graph on the screen now, right, mate?
Oh, shit, I'm sorry.
It looks like cancer screenings have gone down exactly when they stopped doing the once-a-year screening, and abortion has pretty much stayed flat. Maybe a slight increase, probably related to increase in population, maybe? It's very, very slight. The original graph appeared to be drawing a direct correlation between the changing numbers of the two services by drawing two big arrows which cross each other in the middle for no logical reason, and with a complete lack of scaling. Oh, believe me, Daddy, there is a logical reason. It's to manipulate people's opinions. And it's super logical. There's a reason people do this with statistics. It's not just because they're shit at, drawing them. It's because they've got an agenda. Obviously. Come on. Why the do we have to do this to ourselves? The most misleading aspect of the chart is that the upward trending number of recent abortions is placed at the very top, while the decreased number of cancer screenings is placed way down at the bottom. This is despite the fact that the recent total number of abortions is still way lower than the total number of cancer screenings by a difference of over 6,000. And there's no way you should be placing a lower number above a higher number on a graph unless perhaps the mysterious undefined y-axis was meant to be running backwards. Yeah, well, it's not there. So you could just draw a squiggly line and be like, oh, well, actually... there's actually 5 y-axes at different points running vertically along the graph. Because it's not there, you could do whatever the you want. You could sign your name and be like, yeah, I can make that work. We could somehow get that to work with the y-axis. Maybe the x-axis a little bit as well. Come on now. Now, before we get too hot and bothered with the congressman for producing deliberately misleading twaddle, it's been reported that the non-graph was actually produced by the anti-abortion group Americans United for Life. Yes, but the congressman still took it to Congress. He f***ing knew there wasn't a y-axis on there. He's not gonna not say that he's not stupid, because maybe he's stupid, because he's either stupid or a liar.
Why you always lying?
Who were trying to push forward the idea of Planned Parenthood, that they'd abandoned breast cancer screenings in favor of encouraging everyone to have an abortion instead. Come in for a breast cancer screening, have you? Can I interest you in an abortion? 2 for 1, maybe, yeah? Drop the base. A slightly sneakier way of misrepresenting graph data is to remove the baseline of an axis and create what is commonly called a truncated graph. Oh yeah, this is one of those ones where it starts at like, you know, you've got a scale of 0 to 1,000 and they started at like 990, and then it makes everything, even though everything's really close to each other, make it look further apart. It's super common. And another one they use is where it's like, and there is a legitimate reason to use a graph that works like this, but it can also be used to manipulate data, is where it says, you know, the first block of the big brain Simon of the y-axis will say 0 to 10, then it'll be like 10 to 100, then it'll be 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, and it like, Simon, get your big brain in gear. What is the f***ing word for that? I don't remember, but you know what I mean.
I don't understand. I don't understand, bitch. I don't understand. I don't.
All you big brains are screaming in the comments right now. Most of us would reasonably assume that a numerical baseline would begin with 0. Skipping ahead to a higher number can inflate the data you're highlighting to create a wildly exaggerated result. A good example of this was shown very recently in 2021 by Fox News. What did I tell you? Who have something of a track record. What did I tell you when it comes to producing graphs designed to shock and outrage because it gets clicks and it sells ads, baby? This sort of is like, people are like, oh, YouTubers, they use such clickbait. And it's like, bro, Fox News is using crazy ass graphs. It's the same thing. Fox anchor Tucker Carlson was worried about how Christianity was rapidly crumbling in America and that God was losing his fan base. Oh no, Tucker. Oh God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do in this faithless nation filled with demons, Tucker? No one cares, Tucker. No one cares. As he himself put it, not so long ago, this was an enthusiast. I don't know how Tucker Carlson sounds. I got no idea. But I imagine he's like, yeehaw! Not so long ago, this was an enthusiastically Christian country. As a result, as 2009, 77% of Americans told pollsters they considered themselves to be believing Christians. Then in just 10 years, over the course of the Obama administration, who was not even born in this nation. No, I added that. Put that in square brackets because I made that up. The original number dropped by 12 points. It sounds as if Tucker was pointing the finger at the devilish Obama for tempting good Christian Americans away from the good book. Exactly. Obama is responsible for all of the sinners in this nation, and he's personally responsible for all of the abortions as well. That f***ing devil! He's also black! And he wasn't born in this nation! I just threw in a bit of racism there because I just assume it's got, it's got to have something to do with racism, doesn't it? You just get that vibe. It just does. And to help illustrate his point, Tucker, I'm not saying Tucker's a racist. That was just to be 100% clear. I was making fun of generic, Americans who, birth their Americans, which, fun fact, I think that was actually Hillary Clinton's thing. Where, didn't she kick that off, or is this just fake news? It's possibly fake news, but I feel like I've heard that. Let's have a quick look. Let's Snopes it up. Snopes. Bertha. Hillary Clinton. Because, Hillary Clinton's pretty sketch, right? Snopes. Did Clinton supporters start the Bertha movement? I love you, Snopes. Let's see. Conspiracy theories. Oh my God, where's my simple answer, Snopes? Let's go. False! Oh, it's fake news. That fake news is permeating the world. Because I'm the sort of person who reads that be like, yeah, right. But then I'm like, oh, it is Hillary Clinton, isn't it? And then that's crazy that I actually thought that was a thing, and it's false. And don't be lying. Don't be like, oh, it's only Snopes, Simon. To which my response is, fuck Snopes, isn't it? It's the best. You shut your dirty mouth. I also really wanted a Coke. Yeah, you're thirsty now.
Please give me Coke. Coke.
And to help illustrate this point, Tucker displayed a graph which showed a massive slump in believers and warned of America's rapid descent into hell. Yes, they're a bit of 12% slump according to the results of a poll which may or may not have been conducted in a credible manner. More on that kind of thing in a moment. But the graph makes it look as if the slump from 77 to 70 to 65% is absolutely enormous. Yeah, it's not. It makes it look like a third less people believe. It makes it look like it's about a third, but it's really just a 12% difference, which is high and better. And that's because the horizontal y-axis on the right unfathomably begins at 58% and stops dead at 78%, which means that we're zooming in on an enlarged chunk of data. If we put on our sensible robes and give the y-axis a baseline of 0, the result would be a lot more like this. That's good. That's good. Which suggests that Obama's heretical plan didn't have quite so much impact and that America should perhaps place a bit less faith in Fox News, if you had any faith in Fox News. Omitting the baseline can also prove quite effective when providing nutritional information. This unusual graph from KFC. Ooh, KFC. I haven't had KFC in like a month. I think I've told this story before. I went to the doctor. I had like a yearly medical checkup. They gave me a little blood test to make sure that I'm not rotting inside. He says, drinking a Coke. And they're like, your cholesterol's pretty high. You need to eat less fatty. How much KFC exactly do you eat, fact boy? And I was like, not a lot, honestly. Not a lot at all. Never, I mean, I what's KFC? So now I have to eat more healthy. And exercise. It's late. I gotta go for an hour's run this afternoon. Why? Fucking stupid ass middle-aged body. Why can't I just eat and drink as much as I want in the past with 0 consequences, body? What the f***? Now I get hangovers. I drink too much and it's like, why? 5 years ago, it was like, yeah, okay, I'll have another shot. Yeah, let's have a cocktail. Ooh, wine. And I'll wake up the next day and be like, and now I'm just like, oh, I feel like shit. It's terrible. This unusual graph from KFC shows how their crispy chicken twister wrap has significantly less calories than the equivalent meal being dished up at Taco Bell, Burger King, and Wendy's. Let me zoom in on that shit. Yeah, again, it starts at $5.90 and it runs to $7.30. So it's like, the reality is, okay, so the KFC thing is $650 and the Wendy's thing is $7.20, but it makes it look like double when only it's like 10% more calories. Also, if you're looking at this, why aren't you going to McDonald's or Pizza Hut or whatever it is? The generic pizza slice. Why wouldn't you go there instead? Come on now. it's KFC. If this is yours, you're just promoting McDonald's. Come on.
Fucking amateur.
Walter.
It's an unusual graph because it's here. It's the problem with Coke.
It's Coke, actually, right?
It's an unusual graph because it weirdly seems to indicate that you're better off going to McDonald's or grabbing a pizza if you're serious about losing weight. Exactly. But the length of the bars also indicates on first glance that a KFC wrap has about half as many calories as the similar products available at those three other chains. And that's simply because the x-axis at the bottom, which represents the calorie count, begins at 590 instead of 0. So we're focusing on blown up visual cues, which are completely out of proportion. Yeah, and there's two important things to bear in mind. I am looking for what's wrong with these. If I saw that just, flashed up on a TV advert for a second, I'd be like, ooh, I'm going to eat at McDonald's, weirdly, which feels like a strange message, KFC. But I'd get my data wrong, right? And also, the second thing, there's loads of stupid people who could even see those numbers and be like, what's a calorie? Not that stupid, but they could see those numbers and be like, I don't really get it, but it seems healthier, doesn't it?
That's a lot of information to get in 30 seconds.
If the graph used a baseline of 0, we'd see that the difference between the... Let's see it. Oh, Danny, we don't have an equivalent graph, but that's okay. We'd see that the difference between 650 calorie KFC wrap and the 720 calorie alternatives from the other three chains is pretty minimal in reality and barely worth chewing over for too long. However, there are times when even omitting the baseline or manipulating an axis still isn't going to cut that zinger sauce. When all else fails, more drastic measures are required. Like, say, just flipping the graph upside down. Okay, here we go. Oh, my... We're talking about gun deaths. We've taken a different path. I mean, we talked about abortion earlier. So, is it... I mean, we went abortion, Kentucky, gun deaths. Brilliant. I mean, talk about an American episode today. I feel like these are the three most American things. Not like controversy over abortion, because everywhere else except for like Ireland or whatever. I'm like, yeah. I mean, and let's not... Obviously, we're not talking... Sorry. Like, developed democracies. Let's not talk about the Middle East. It's like, look. If their women don't have rights, generally, do you really think they're going to have the rights to have an abortion? No. Maybe the husbands can choose for them. Fucking hell. Reuters published a graph in the 2010s which depicted the number of gun deaths in Florida following the passing of the Stand Your Ground law in 2005. Okay, from first glance, there doesn't seem to be a ton wrong with this. And it just seems like, okay, they enacted a Stand Your Ground law and gun deaths went up. Which is not surprising in any way whatsoever. The law essentially made it legal for a person to use deadly force in self-defense, and this perhaps predictably led to a sudden spike in the number of firearm murders committed in the state over the next few years. Actually, it didn't, Danny, because those aren't murders. It's not murder if you kill someone in self-defense. It's manslaughter. So there were no change in murders. Actually, there probably were. I mean, there was a change in gun deaths. And also, it'd be like, oh yeah, he's coming towards me. The security cameras show that he was running away. Okay, I just really wanted to murder him, for f***'s sake. An accurate representation of the data would have looked like this. Okay, the one I was just looking at. But the designer of the graph, Christine Chan, decided that she didn't like the look of that big hill, so she reversed the y-axis, putting the 0 at the top, and then showing the results moving down to 800. Okay, so she just flipped it upside down, which says the exact same thing technically, but it does make it look like it's going down. Which is kind of insane. Why are you doing this? Now, if anyone bothers to try and make sense of this baffling new visual, they'll see that the higher numbers are placed at the bottom, but on first glance, Christina's produced an upside-down looking graph which appears to show that gun murders took a reassuring tumble following the introduction of a law which makes it legal to murder a dodgy gang of trick-or-treaters without risking a prison sentence. Yeah, I mean, what are we trying to prove here? That gun deaths would go down with a Stand Your Ground law? That is an insane argument with some twisted ass logic. It's very possible that Christine wasn't trying to push a false idea with this graph. She later claimed that she preferred to show deaths in negative terms and that she had drawn inspiration from a similar graph called Iraq's Bloody Toll. That one visualized the death toll of soldiers and civilians during the coalition military engagement in the country between 2003 and 2011. Coalition military engagement. Are we doing some Peter on that? It was an invasion. It's the invasion of Iraq. I don't think anyone's saying that is not. The coalition military engagement. The graphic flipped the y-axis to produce a disturbing image of bloody bars dripping even further down the chart as the death toll increased. This actually worked quite well, but you don't get any sense of that visual flourish with the Florida guns deaths graph. Whether this was intentionally confusing is up for debate, but at the very least, Reuters are guilty of publishing a graph that prioritized artistic license over common sense. Yeah, Reuters, what are you up to? Don't be publishing it like this. It looks stupid. You're Reuters, do better. What you do is just provide facts. You're like the original OG fact boys. Just get it right. And girls. You could probably get legally shot for that in Florida. Yeah, I believe it. It's Florida. Florida's crazy. The cherry pickers. Another slightly craftier method for pushing your own perspective in a graph is to zone in on the bits to help illustrate your point while conveniently chopping off any surrounding areas that get in the way of your version of the truth. Often known as improper extraction, the idea is to leave out key data or context which might help to illustrate the bigger picture and just focus on the bits which put across your agenda in a positive light. During his presidency... What a surprise, this is Donald Trump here. Was notorious for cherry-picking the data that fitted in nicely with whatever agenda he wanted to push at the time. Here's a graph he tweeted which showed the 5 top months in American history that witnessed the biggest ever job gains. Okay, zooming in. Sam put it on the screen. Okay. So, great. It looks like the job gains are going up. Great. We can see a few entries from the 1940s and 50s.
The fuck?
We can see a few entries from the 1940s and 50s, while September 83 takes second place with a monthly job gain of just over 1 million. Yeah, this is absurd. You're just picking random dates in history. Like, just random dates. So you'd just pick bad dates, and then one other date that shows you being good. It would be like, yeah, we're doing great on the economy. Look at this data compared to the Great Recession. Or the Great Depression, even. It's like, okay. Yeah, but you're just comparing it to the worst thing. What are you doing?
Don't lie to me.
But riding a high in pole position is the month of May 2020, which saw a pretty impressive gain of 2.5 million over the previous month. Wait, the previous month is September 1983 on this graph. What are you talking about? Oh, I see.
Great job.
Top 5 monthly job gains. Actually, I've got that wrong. I apologize. These are not just random. They're the top 5 monthly job gains. So we're looking, so May 2020 seems to be high, and then there's the other 4, which you assume are positions 2, 3, 4, and 5. And of course, let's see where this goes. I don't know what's wrong with this graph yet. I don't know what data has been cherry-picked. And of course, Trump was very happy about this, as he was the one playing with the cool desk toys in the Oval Office at the time of the historic job growth. We're number 1, he tweeted with pride, but wait a minute, what the graph neglects to show are the preceding months for comparison. And I'm not sure if you'll remember this, but there was a lot of shit going down in April 2020, thanks to something that historians call the COVID pandemic, and this had a bit of an impact on employment figures. Economist John Schwabish, maybe, tweeted a more insightful graph which shows what actually happened here is that 20 million workers lost their jobs in the darkest months in American employment history. Oh my God, Sam, throw it up.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a reason it grew. It's because it shrunk massively the previous month. There's a penis joke in there somewhere, isn't there? And the following month, 2.5 million of them were fortunate enough to get their jobs back. This growth figure seems to include workers who were placed on new furlough schemes for their old day jobs, which is arguably not quite the same as the other historic gains depicted in Trump's version of the graph. While Trump may have felt proud to smash another prestigious record, it feels a bit like boasting that the Titanic had the biggest survival rate from any sinking ship disaster. Statistically true. It might be technically true, but it's kind of missing the point. At least the climate change deniers know how to put together a decent graph. Oh, we're moving on to another entry, are we, Danny? Okay, then. In the past, I found that I was regularly challenged by my tree-hugging hippie neighbors whenever I was burning a few more tires in the backyard and minding my own goddamn business. Salter, are you burning another tire? It stinks, and you're ruining the environment, Salter. That's Danny's surname. It just felt more appropriate for his neighbors to be shouting at him by his surname. I don't know why. Danny sounds too friendly, doesn't it? Danny, stop burning that tire! They used to shout over the fence that what I was doing was very bad for the environment. They couldn't have been more wrong. I actually kept stealing the tires from their toxic fume-belching car when they weren't even looking. They would know, Danny. They would know. And here's a graph which proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that global warming is just a myth anyway. Okay, Sam, do it. Oh, we got a source from NASA, which shows global air temperature change in Celsius. Well, it kind of shows that it's going up. And then someone's drawn a red line on there, which kind of shows that it's going down. That's not how you draw a trend line, guys. And I get the feeling NASA just provided the data and then someone else whacked that trend line on there. So, yeah, that graph is going to need some fixing. I couldn't find the exact source, but it's regularly wheeled out by climate change deniers as proof that, if anything, the planet is actually cooling down a little bit. Guys, we know the planet is heating up. That is a f***ing fact. The debate, and in my opinion a stupid debate, is whether we're the ones actually causing it. There's no one who really denies that it's getting hotter, other than, like, full conspiracy theorists, right? There's people who would argue, well, it's not us. It's just a natural cycle of the planet, which I think, has also been debunked. But it's also, that is much more credible than actually denying that the planet's getting warmer. It's getting warmer. We know that. It's factual. It charts the change in air temperature in Celsius from between 1998 and 2012, and as we can see, the line actually drops very slightly over this 14-year period. And these figures weren't just plucked out of the refreshingly cool air. They came from NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. Okay, so this trend line is kind of saying, okay, well, we've got it at the peak here, at the beginning, and then we've got it at the peak at the drop here at the end, and what looks like a trend graph is really just a trend line is really just a line linking up the beginning point and the end point. But every graph that goes up is going to have waves, and you can't just start it at one point at the high and then end it at another point at the low, when obviously the trend overall is increasing. That's some stupid shit. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to be going on here. Changing over to Fahrenheit, NASA concluded that the global mean temperature in 2012 was 58.2 degrees, which represents a small decrease over the 58.3 temperature measured back in 1998. So what's Greta Thunberg and her cronies banging on about? And can anyone lend me a good bobble hat for 2026? Well, the first thing to bear in mind here is that 1998 witnessed abnormally high global average surface temperatures, thanks in part to an unusually strong El Niño event. This is the irregular warm phase of a natural climate oscillation in the tropical Pacific Ocean, which in this case helped to make 1998 the official warmest year of the 20th century. So the graph was kicking off from a freakily warm spot, that high point I was talking about, and then noting that the temperature hadn't risen over the subsequent short period of time. It's true that natural variability resulted in a slowdown in the rise in temperatures during this window of time, although although we continue to see many of the other long-term effects of global warming. But this is why we shouldn't be measuring such short periods anyway. Climate changes are typically measured over a 30-year cycle to reveal a more insightful picture. And in fact, if we take a look at the chart which covers the change in air temperature over the course of 112 years, okay, here we have it. Oh my god, shocking. Look, a dramatic increase. It becomes much harder to deny that things are beginning to get a little more heated here on planet Earth. Thankfully, things are now a little less heated with my hippie neighbors since they exchanged their car for a tandem bicycle, and I cut down to burning just a couple of tires a week in my backyard. I once rode a tandem bicycle. It was kind of fun. Sample of brown sources. So, let's move away from graphs. Danny, I see more graphs. I see more graphs, Danny.
So that was a fucking lie.
I'll keep this here for now, Danny. And onto the cold hard truth of sampling. Marketing teams know that we tend to feel swayed by the seemingly neutral opinion of our fellow customers, and that our ears are naturally going to perk up a little bit if we hear that 95% of women prefer No More Knits shampoo, or that 8 out of 10 cats prefer Whiskas cat food. But the big compelling marketing slogan rarely tells the full story and often just raises more questions. For example, how was the polling conducted? What kind of people were asked for their opinion? How many participants were involved in the survey? And how the hell do cats tick the box on the form that expresses a preference for Whiskas over the other types of cat food? Life's important questions, Danny. Yeah, this is one of those ones. It's like, yeah, no, how'd you get this data? Well, we just asked stupid people. Well, to answer that last point first, the cats never got the chance to vote, but that didn't stop the company from using the famous 8 out of 10 cats prefer Whiskas in TV and print commercials for years and years. It was the Advertising Standards Authority who eventually stepped in and gently encouraged Whiskas to move over to the slightly less catchy slogan, 8 out of 10 cat owners who expressed a preference said that their cats prefer it. The Advertising Standards Agency, they get right, but they're not very good at marketing.
Now I am the master.
Only a master of evil, God.
And if you've been advertising as Whiskas, 8 out of 10 cats prefer it, which is, let's not call it a lie, let's call it a puff. And the ASA is like, boys, you're going to have to change that. It's just a friendly letter. You'd be like, oh, thank God it's just a friendly letter, because you could have fined the shite out of us. And even that wasn't entirely true, as the researchers have simply asked the owners if their cats enjoyed Whiskas rather than asked how it compared to other brands. I mean, cats enjoy eating wool and shower curtains and electrical cords. At this point, I'm more concerned that 2 out of 10 cats don't enjoy Whiskas. The actual size of the sample is always going to be hugely important, but you'll usually need a magnifying glass to find it on the packaging or the advert. Over the years, I've come across dozens of adverts for health and beauty products which claim something along the lines of 80% of customers agree that a rampant regeneration is the best anti-aging cream for prematurely wrinkly people.
This next song goes out to the little old lady in the front row. She looks like an angel.
But when you squint to examine the small print, you'll often find that as little as 150 people were asked for their opinions. So in this case, 92 people agreed with the statement, but 23 people didn't. It certainly doesn't sound quite as impressive now, does it? Collecting data from such a tiny sample is almost entirely meaningless. If the producers of rampant regeneration, its fictional cream, please don't look for it on the shelves, had bothered to ask around 10,000 people for their opinion, then the 80% figure might seem a bit more convincing. But in comparison, just asking 115 random people is largely just a waste of time, as such a minuscule sample is unlikely to perfectly encapsulate the tastes of the other 7.7 billion people on the planet. It is better than nothing, though, isn't it? Of course, though, the sample may not have been entirely random in the first place. In that case, then, because it's biased, literally nothing is better. Just randomly choosing would be better. There's always a good chance that the representative sample is going to be heavily biased in one way or another when a company reaches out to the
You disgust me.
When a company reaches out to the public for opinions, they often will be reaching out to the people on their own mailing list or the customers who have already connected with the products or services in some way. Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with this. It's why, sometimes I'll seek feedback. Like, if I've got an idea for a new channel, I'll be like, hey, is this a good idea, audience? What do you think of this? Is this a good idea? Because the problem is that data's super biased. Maybe people will be like, yes, this is an amazing idea, in which case it's biased because the people who follow me, let's say on Twitter, probably already like my stuff. So they're going to be like, it's an amazing idea, Simon, regardless. Or they're going to be like, Simon, this is a terrible idea. And it's still biased data because maybe it's a terrible idea for them, but maybe a channel about cats would reach a whole new audience who would then love that channel about cats. I'm not starting a channel about cats. I'm just trying to illustrate the problem with biased data and reaching out to people who already know you or like you.
So that was a fucking lie.
If the company in question is also throwing in a juicy incentive to participate in their survey, let's say a chance to win an all-expenses paid mountain bike trip with Simon Whistler. I don't ride my mountain bike anymore after I got so injured. I literally haven't been on my mountain bike in nearly a year. I just am like, it's too dangerous. I don't like it. Then the participants are naturally more likely to give favorable responses to questions about that company's products, particularly when the customer happily buys those products anyway. Many other samples are only destined to target a very specific demographic. I'm sure we're all deeply curious to find the popular opinion on the burning question, should cocaine be legalized and distributed free at soup kitchens? We asked a small select group of cocaine addicts who love soup.
Oh, please give me coke and ask them the price of coke.
A survey of this nature conducted by the Funky Nose Candy Soup Dining Club is likely to draw a very different crowd and a very different response to the exact same survey carried out by the Holy Church of Self-Righteous Indignation. Again, Danny. This might be considered an extreme example of selective bias, honestly. Yes, but also this happens all the time. But the point is that the organization or company that commissioned the survey is likely to attract the respondents who are going to give them the desired answer. The actual phrasing of the question can also be a hugely important factor. Let's say that I was being asked my opinion on whether the UK government should increase the taxes of working people to help out less fortunate people who are living on benefits. One way of asking this might be like this: do you believe that ordinary workers should pay more taxes to help those vulnerable individuals struggling to survive below the poverty line? There's so much bias in there, like struggling to survive below the poverty line. It's just like, if you answer no, it sounds like you hate the poor.
Well, I think they should attack the lower classes, first with bombs and rockets, destroying their homes.
So you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't. Well, yes, obviously. Here's another way of asking me that question. Wouldn't you agree that it's unfair to place even heavier tax burdens on hardworking families in order to fund the lifestyles of people who don't go out to work? Again, it's like, well, that one's a bit harder because you can... No, they're both equally hard. And they're both like shitty questions. Especially like they don't use even people, they use families, like hardworking families. It's like, yeah, because my kids do so much work. My family, the kids, the breadwinner. Look, we're all not the McCulkin family. I'm essentially being asked the same fundamental question, but I'm being quite forcefully led into giving two different answers. The problem with blindly accepting the results of what may appear to be a fairly simple survey is that we're not always sure in which direction the participants were being pushed by a flawed leading question. Another thing, not everyone tells the truth anyway. Imagine that, it'd be like, this is, it's the super famous one. I don't know, when I was in school, this was always like one of the famous ones about surveys that was brought up was airlines. And they'd always say, they'd be like, would you be willing to pay more for a more comfortable seat? And all of the surveys were always like, yes, I would be prepared to pay more. But the problem was when any of these customers were actually asked to whip out their credit card and pay for a business class seat or premium economy or whatever, they're like, nah, I'm just not going to do that. I'd rather stand, to be honest, and make it cheaper. So people just lie. Even if it's like an anonymous survey, which is be like, I would, but they don't.
Don't lie to me.
Imagine that a young woman called Felicity Fandango has been dispatched to the mean streets of Rotherham to conduct a genuinely random survey of 10,000 males on the topic of whether they always wash their hands after they've used the toilet. Also, Danny, again, this is not random. It's just men, and it's just in Rotherham. So you're already like narrowing it down. Felicity is going to be there for a while, but she's determined to get accurate results. If someone asked me that, I'd be like, yes. I have to say, I always wash my hands, but that's because I'm a bit of a germaphobe. But dude, like you go to the toilets and someone's like having a whiz and then they just walk straight out. I'll say that happens 30 to 40% of the time. People just whoosh, leave after having a piss. And you're out there touching all that sort of stuff. You just, the worst of it is someone goes out of a stall and they're like squeezing out a big old turd. And then they just walk straight out the bathroom, grab onto that handle and pull that door open and walk out. And it's like, oh, and here I am, like, just scrubbing my hands, going away after a piss. And then it's like, and then you get to that door and you're like, I gotta touch that. So I always just grab the little corner of my jacket and I'm like, whoop. So in here, there's a lot of feces, is what I'm trying to say.
My germ.
Yet how many of those 10,000 male respondents will be willing to freely admit in public to a young woman that they haven't even bought a bar of soap since 1996? Felicity Fandango is destined to head back to the offices of the Rotherham Witchfinder with the compelling headline, 98.2% of Rotherham males always wash their hands after visiting the shit house. Who calls it a shit house, Danny? But is that a real statistic, or is that just the result of 10,000 bashful respondents who couldn't bring themselves to give a truthful answer? We all know, Danny, it's not 98.2, especially not in Rotherham. Jesus. I don't know, I've never been to Rotherham. So, there are plenty of different ways to pluck a poll result from the air and implant it into the minds of the nation without having to worry too much about revealing exactly where you got those magic numbers from or whether they have any credible meaning whatsoever. Extra sauce. Fox News were really on the offensive again in 2013 when they displayed another one of their highly creative graphics. Okay, here we go. I love it when my news gets creative. That's exactly what you're looking for in news, isn't it? Creativity. Oh, wait, no. I misspoke. What I'm actually looking for is fucking news, Fox. Immediately, look at this idiotic graph. 108.6 to 101. And it looks like it's a massive gap. Because there's no y-axis. There's no y-axis. What the fuck? When there's no y-axis, you can make it up. This time they were showing the alarming results pulled from the Census Bureau, which purported to show the number of Americans in full-time work in 2011 compared to the number of citizens receiving some kind of means-tested federal benefits. All right, there's another massive problem with this, because, okay, even if it was 108 million people on welfare to 101 million people with a full-time job, immediately, oh my god, there are more people without a job than there are people with jobs. But there's two major problems with this. One, it says people with a full-time job, so that doesn't include business owners, it doesn't include people who are self-employed, it doesn't include housewives or house husbands, it doesn't include people who are voluntarily out of work for whatever reason, and it also doesn't include people with part-time jobs. Holy shit. And then also people on welfare. There's a huge other problem on this side of the equation. I don't know how it works in America, but welfare isn't just something that people who don't have jobs get. Welfare can be something, if you're disabled in some way, you can get, we don't call it welfare, we call it benefits, but you'll get a benefit, like there'll be, I don't know, however it works, but they'll kick you some extra money because you need, I don't know, a turbo wheelchair or whatever, or like a blind person stick. This kind of stuff, they give you extra money, like a welfare benefit. Not to mention, there are just, what's the other thing? There's something parents get, like if you, like child allowance or something. Like if you have a kid, then you get some extra money, but then if you get rich, then they take it back from you or something like that. It's kind of like a weird tax thing. I don't know. Look, but obviously this graph is mega bullshit, and I imagine I've just pointed out things that Danny is about to point out. So I'm just doing this to make me look clever, which is kind of pointless. I'm sorry. Let's carry on.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
And the state of play didn't look particularly healthy. As we could see here, the bar on the left, which shows the number of people receiving benefits, seems around 4 times higher than the number of people on the right in full-time work. This graph is so broken in so many ways. There's probably even ways that Danny knows that I haven't even pointed out. The first thing to point out is that Fox have pulled the old trick of omitting the